He was calling himself. Yeah, I know, but it's not me. Let me see here, real quick. He went crazy on the show. Casey Armstrong. Casey Armstrong.
Oh, Casey. So yeah. So you know what? There's two aspects to the people that have been on the Stern Show. It's very, 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 very rare that somebody gets fired from that show. You know, most people leave on their own accord. Artie, as everybody classically knows, had to be fired by Tim Sabian. Casey apparently was messing around with one of the other people that worked there, which I guess at the time was forbidden, even though the woman that Howard wound up taking in as his, chief operations officer of the Stern shows wound up marrying one of the guys who worked there, but I digress. And then, so Casey unfortunately had to be let go, and Stuttering John, of course, left on his own accord to make, quadruple the amount of money that he was making there. And, you can really almost count on one hand how many people actually work there that have left. I mean, think about it. Many of the people that are there have been there well over 20, if not 30 years.
But you know the story about Casey Armstrong back at his apartment, and he was cutting himself and pouring the blood on the Bible?
I do not know that story.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Okay. You got to look up that. You got to look that up. And also, too, the other one, too, Crazy Cabby, I had him on the show, and he, at one point, too, he thought he was being recorded. He thought his phones were tapped. They were filming him through his walls. There's been a lot of mental illness with this bunch.
Well, I think that that's what attracts people that Howard likes to keep in his sphere. Like, I think that he likes to be, the man who knows the most in a room. He wants to be the skinniest. He wants to be the wealthiest. Most of his people are like well overweight, probably on Zoloft, have all sorts of mental deficiencies and all no other job other than working for Howard. So he somehow is able to be almost like an abusive father, where he, can keep them down with how he berates them or how he talks to them, yet show them kindness by, the beneficence of having them have a job with the Howard Stern Show. And for most of them, that's as good as it's going to get, I think.
I think back to my days when I was in New York and I had my little business, and I would do that same kind of comedy routine to my employees. And I'm going to berate them, it was sharp tongue, wit, criticism,
yes,
and torture each other all day long. That wasn't a good thing. That wasn't a,
You know what?
Yeah.
Is it? I'm the same way. I mean, I think at my peak, I had like 16 people that worked under me. And I am who I am. I am sarcastic and obnoxious, and I do curse a lot, and I will berate people, but it only comes from love, I think. And I think that it's only to make them better. I don't want anybody working for me who's just gonna get by, learn something, and understand that you're doing something wrong. But with Howard, he picks on them for eating meat. He picks on them for not working out as hard as he does. He picks on them for not. I mean, especially with COVID now. My God, it's insanity. He's holed up in his mansion. Yeah. And basically being a monster to anybody who dare go outside or has to shop for themselves or chooses to just have a little bit of outdoor time with drinks with a friend or two. I mean, it's just insanity to me that this is who he's become. But they all have drank the Kool-Aid, and so they all are under his thumb. Like a Svengali of sorts. It's kind of weird to me.
Is there anybody who's left that still has a good relationship with him?
Well, I don't know. Define good relationship. Anybody who's left the show who has a good relationship with him? No, I would say
I can't think of one either, yeah.
Not one. And it'll be interesting because if Ronnie does wind up leaving at the end of the year, or I think he's supposed to leave in 6 months or something like that and move to Vegas or whatever he's going to do, it'll be very interesting to see whether or not he retains a relationship with a Ronnie. Probably depends on whether or not they have a NDA or not. will be whether or not he stays friends with them.
And you mentioned the NDA. Now, that's interesting because no one who's left ever talks about a wig or being bald or dyeing his hair. Has anybody that's been gone talk about that?
God knows I have asked every single person who has ever been on my show,
okay,
whether they think it's a wig, whether they think, I would say that most people at this point who don't ever want to talk about it, because, there's always this fear that a man who has the platform that he does will, there'll be severe repercussions for talking about him, and so there's a great fear of that. But yeah, I think most people will tell you that if it's not a wig, it's a hair system. It's something that covers up. He's very, very vain, Howard. He's a very vain man. And, once Private Parts was done, he took all the wigs home and he wore them almost exclusively when he would go on, TV or on air somewhere or be broadcast. And, because he just felt like he needed to be that rock star guy. And but yeah, a lot of them don't like to talk about him. I mean, it's usually the same cast of characters that you will hear in any of these news reports that are out there. But I'll hear from people on Twitter on private text. Will be like, okay, who do you think talked this time? And it's like, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure who this one is attributable to, And most of the stuff that was in the Scott Salem thing, we've talked about forever, and yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy there.
Now, I haven't listened in a long time because I just stopped enjoying it. But what's his relationship with Gary like these days?
So Gary, there's actually a really great thread on it at my forum this week. Well, today, because things usually fall off the first page within a couple of hours. But basically talking about how he just berated him so much this week and last week, and and we're all just so amazed at how Gary still takes it. But I wrote a whole dissertation on it, basically saying how can you not understand that somebody who came in there as a glorified intern directly out of a Delphi college, who knows absolutely nothing else about radio other than what he's been taught from Howard, would not ride on this wave until it came crashing to shore? I mean, that's all you can do. You have made yourself this person in this role. You will always be Boy Gary the intern. You will always be the person, the first go-to to be berated about anything that you do. And that is your lot in life, and you need to accept it. And for that, you got a big, beautiful house in Connecticut. Your two kids went to great colleges and got internships at, amazing places because of who their dad knows. And he's gotten a ton of stuff for free. He traveled all over the place, and so... Okay, so if the boss wants to beat him up a couple of times on air, I'm okay with it,
And Gary seems to be... I talked to Gary, not as an interview. It's in the newspapers. I helped him out with that time he was being stalked by that woman when he was in Greenwich, Connecticut, running for that Parks position, whatever it was.
Oh, Parks, right.
Yeah. And some woman wrote this crazy email, and I helped him out with that. And it seems to be a genuinely nice man,
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. Listen, he has been blessed with the ability to have absolutely no discernible talent whatsoever, yet be able to make a ton of money and probably not have to think about when Howard retires in 5 years actually having to, go and seek out another profession or another job. I think he'll be able to retire and be fine and not ever have to worry again. So, he's made it in my eyes.
Now, one of the things that I'm just only getting wind of is this whole business about this organizational woman, this woman who's an organizer.
Marcy Turk?
Yeah. Who is this woman? What's the story with this? She's like a cult leader. How did she came in there and took the place over?
So, okay. Yeah. All right. So it's a little jumbled there, but Marcy Turk used to work for the company Getting Things Done, GTD. So some people will say it's a cult, others will just say it's a way of life. Basically, Howard got into it initially because I'm almost positive that he still had an AOL account, which, as you know, anybody who has an AOL account, if you look at their phone, you know, they have 10,000 unread messages and stuff like that. And, you know, he read the book. He was fascinated with the organizational techniques that were implemented in the book. And as Howard is known to do, if he wants to learn how to play chess, he will go to a grandmaster to teach him. If he wants to learn how to play guitar, he will go to the best, guitarist that's not with a rock band to teach him how to play guitar. Same thing with his art. So he went directly to GTD and said, I'm really a believer in what you're peddling. And, I need help with my organization. And by organization, it means, Gary and the rest of the crew. Mm-hmm. Because I think, familiarity breeds a lot of contempt. I mean, and again, it's something that was part of the thread today at the forum. But, Gary would basically walk around in, a dirty T-shirt and shorts or his Adidas tracksuit, eating donuts that were sent up by, somebody, and calling people to come on the show. And if they didn't want to come on, it's okay, no big deal. And, not really have to work too hard anymore. And I think that Howard, because he's not able to be that person, to be that demanding taskmaster, needed to have somebody in the organization that would be that person. So along comes a Marcy Turk, who was part of the organization. Details are a little hazy for me on her, because if you ever checked out her LinkedIn, she had basically 12 jobs, and he hired her when she was only in her mid-30s. So I'm not exactly sure what kind of, discernible talent she had, other than to be the person who would get everybody's lives together there and make them a little bit more professional. And I think that was the entirety of what her job was supposed to be. And then, famously, the recording, I don't know if you ever saw it, of Howard talking to all of his people back in the early 2000s, so whenever it was, talking about how we need to get it together, we need to be a better, more effective team. And classically at that meeting, Gary said, do I report to her too, boss? And he said, yes, you do. Yes, you do. So you no longer, come directly to me. You go through, everything goes through Marcy. So she became, the one in charge. And everybody will kind of point to that as being the moment where they thought that the Howard Stern show had officially jumped the shark, because then he was the brand. No longer was it the show. It was just Howard. And all you could talk about was Howard. And, gosh, it really changed everything for them, I think, sadly.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that recording. I didn't realize the significance of it. But it sounded like a crazy man. So,
no kidding, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there was spelling errors in it. I mean, just everything about it. I mean, for us, it was like the Zapruder film of things that Howard does wrong. And, we've parsed through it 1,000 times and laughed at it each time. And it's just like, gosh, I can't believe that he would get everybody together in a room to peddle this to them and say, basically, this is going to be your new boss. Things are going to change around here. Breakfast will await everybody who comes in, and we have to treat them like this is the red carpet, because it was his way of selling his rebranding. It was the rebranding of Howard. It was the rebranding of, not being known for, painting women's chests with a, shamrock, or doing things with naked girls on TV. This was the rebranding of the brilliant interviewer, the man that everybody knows, the most important, most popular DJ in American history. And that was when the rebranding began.
So we know who filmed the Zapruder film. Do we know who recorded this and leaked it?
We absolutely know who recorded it and leaked it.
And you're not going to tell on the Opera report? You're not going to tell me that?
No, we absolutely know who recorded it and leaked it. And there's some speculation. I mean, people... oh, gosh. I mean, I've never seen my inbox go as crazy as it did when that thing was released to the general public. It was just such a delicious moment in time. And, at some point, I think you know what? When he retires, or I don't know, when he retires, I'll probably go out there and tell everybody, you know, how the whole thing went down, and who I'm